So tomorrow is election day in America. We have new polls suggesting that the blue wave is really possible, but that's when it comes to the House of Representatives because in the Senate, Democrats face a really tough race. According to 538, they only have one in six chances, which is 17.8%, of getting the control of the Senate. That's because they are defending a lot of seats, more than Republicans do, and therefore they obviously have some seats in red states. For example, North Dakota, Indiana, Missouri, and Florida. So we will analyze the polls, the latest polls, and I will give my own prediction, and I will explain why I have categorized this any race. So before I can explain my analysis, I will explain the margin. So safe means a 15% plus margin of victory. A likely means 10% to 15%, leans means 7% to 10%, and tilt means 0% to 7%. So all the safe states are Washington, California, Minnesota, New York, Vermont, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, Hawaii, and New Mexico. Oh, and Virginia. Now to save, before I will show you why I believe these are the safe races. So if you look at Washington, a 15 plus margin of victory. California doesn't even have a Republican on the ticket, on the ballot. Minnesota, a 22.2% margin of victory. And New York, a 15% plus margin of victory. Vermont, 15% plus. Maine, 15% plus. Rhode Island, 15% plus. Massachusetts, with Elizabeth Warren, 15% plus. And all these states have 15% plus. Virginia with Tim Kaine, 15% plus. New Mexico with Martin Heinrich with 15% plus. So all of these races are safe Democratic races. Now we are going to see which are the seats that Republicans are really favored to win. So Wyoming, Utah with Mitt Romney. These two races are safe GOP states. Mississippi and Nebraska. All these states are going to be decided by a margin of 15% plus, favoring the GOP. Now we're heading into the likely states. The likely states, as I said, are states that are going to be decided by a margin of victory from 10% to 15%. The first one is Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and Ohio. These Rust Belt states are going to be decided by that margin. If we look at the polls, in Wisconsin, 14% lead. In Michigan, 14.5% lead. Pennsylvania, 14.4% lead. Ohio, 13.2% lead. Short brown. So these are likely Democratic seats. What else? Now, likely GOP seats from 10% to 15%. We don't really have a likely GOP seat. I mean, in 538, North Dakota is likely, but the margin is only 5.4%. So that's not a likely in my way of predicting the Senate. So, and Minnesota special election is a Democratic seat as well, a likely Democratic seat, 10%. Oh, and Mississippi special election, Democrats thought they had a shot in this race, but they don't. Now it's too late to see Democrats having a shot. So this is a likely GOP seat. According to 538 and according to me, according to 538, I believe this race is going to be decided by, let me see, well, by 12%, and according to me, this race is going to narrow down to 9%, but still, if you get the average, is a Democratic GOP seat, a likely GOP seat. Now we're going to the leaning. West Virginia and Bob Menendez in New Jersey are are holding their seats, are retaining their seats. And New Jersey actually here shows Robert Menendez defeating Bob Hogg by 10.5%, but I believe this race will narrow down to 8%. So that's a leaning Democratic seat. West Virginia with Joe Manchin defeating Patrick Morrisey by 7.1%, and my prediction is Joe Manchin winning by 7.5%. So that's a leaning Democratic seat as well. Democrats have, as of now, 44 seats and Republicans 47. Now we're going in the leaning GOP seats, but there are no leaning GOP seats. We're heading now into tilt. So Montana. Oh, just reminding you that tilt means a margin of victory that goes from 0% to 7%. Why is this a tilt? Because it's within the margin of error, and if any party shows up in big numbers, this race could have a different result than that of the polls. So, for example, Montana here has Jon Tester defeating Matt Rosendale by 4.8%. That's a tilt. I believe this race will be decided by 5%. So as well, it's a tilt. North Dakota is the first pickup by the GOP in this prediction. Heidi Heitkamp is losing to Kevin Cramer by 5.4%. So that's a GOP pickup. Now we are in the Democratic pickups. The pickups favoring the Democrats. Nevada, Jackie Rosen will defeat Dean Heller according to 538 by 1.9 percentage points. I believe this race will be a little bit will have a bigger margin of victory because Democrats are underestimated in the state of Nevada. I don't know why, but a proof of this is the 2016 election where Real Clear Politics said that Donald Trump was going to win in Nevada by a narrow margin, but at the end, Clinton could have the edge here and won the state by 2%. So that's a Democratic tilting state. Now we head to Arizona, where Kristen Sinema is expecting or is hoping to flip the seat. Martha McSally is trailing Kristen Sinema right now, and I believe, well, according to 538, this race will be decided by 2.4%. I believe this race will be decided by 3.5%, so that's a tilt Democratic state. Texas has a really interesting race. Beto O'Rourke, the Democrat, thought he was going to unseat Ted Cruz. Actually, 1 month ago, this race was even. Now, Ted Cruz has the edge again. But I believe this race will be really tight. Actually, 538 has Ted Cruz winning here by 5.1%. I believe the margin of victory will be a little bit smaller, and Beto O'Rourke really has chances. But at the end, it is a tilting Republican state. My prediction: Texas will favor Ted Cruz by 3 points. At the end, it's a tilting Republican state. So now moving on to Tennessee, Phil Bredesen, the popular governor, is hoping as well to flip the seat and defeat Marsha Blackburn. Marsha Blackburn wasn't even known in the state. However, Donald Trump has been campaigning here, and Marsha Blackburn has the lead now here in this state. A really deep red state, ruby red state, I'd say. So, however, even though Donald Trump won here by double digits, I believe by 25% back in 2016, this state is actually really close. 5%, a 5% lead favoring Marsha Blackburn isn't very big. And I believe that Democrats, if they show up in big numbers, this race could go down to the wire. So I will give them the Republicans the advantage here. But my prediction: Republican +2. 538's prediction: Republicans +5. At the end, it's a tilting Republican state. So we have now 3 interesting states. All of them were red states back in 2016. Florida has Bill Nelson, the incumbent Democrat, facing off Rick Scott, the incumbent governor. who is really popular actually. But polls suggest that Bill Nelson will retain his seat by 3.4%. I believe this will narrow down on election day, which is tomorrow, by 2%. And well, Bill Nelson will win here by 2%. Still, it's a tilting Democratic state. Indiana has Joe Donnelly, the incumbent Democratic, facing off against Mike Brown, but polls suggest that the Democrats will have the edge tomorrow by 1.8%. And I believe the race will be tighter. I believe it will be decided by 1%, but still it's a Democratic tilting state. The fact that the suburban women in the Indianapolis area will come out in big numbers, according to polls, will give Joe Donnelly the edge. Missouri. Missouri is the most difficult state for me to predict because Claire McCaskill is a two-term Democrat senator of the state, facing off the Attorney General Josh Hawley. Polls have Hawley defeating McCaskill by 0.4% in 538 and in Real Clear Politics. I believe he's leading McCaskill in Real Clear Politics by 0.8%. However, we have two big metropolitan areas here: the St. Louis City and Kansas City. Both cities have Republican-leaning suburbs. However, let's consider something. Donald Trump is not doing well when it comes to approval ratings with white suburban women, especially suburban women with a college degree. And if these women, if this social sector comes out to vote in big numbers, and the blue wave is actually a really blue wave or a blue tsunami, and African Americans and Hispanics come out to vote as well in big numbers, and young voters come out to vote in big numbers as well, Missouri will tilt Democratic, and I will leave my prediction in the Missouri. I will land Missouri in the tilt Democratic category because McCaskill has gotten really lucky when it comes to being re-elected. And as I was saying, the Democrats hope to retain the seat, even though polls show Hawley defeating McCaskill. I believe that the factor that this year is a Democratic wave year. The fact that suburban women are really enthusiastic to vote favoring the Democrats, and that young voters in the St. Louis and Kansas City suburbs are willing to vote favoring the Democrats as well. I believe that all these factors will help McCaskill retain her seat. So this is my final prediction: 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans, with the vice president breaking the tie and giving the Republicans the majority in the Senate. Let me know in the comments if you have any different predictions and explain why. I will be really happy to read your comments, and let's see tomorrow if I'm wrong or right. Thank you for watching.